I think the issue of teachers looking after themselves is actually a really important issue, and I just want to give the kind of the metaphor of weekend migraines. It's kind of really instructive. Some people who have a very busy work life, they hold it together during the week, and incredibly annoyingly, they get a migraine only on Saturday. It's a fascinating and annoying phenomena. What happens is they kind of force, issues and stress and symptoms out of their head, and when they relax is actually when they get headaches. That metaphor, I think, works quite well for this year. There will be a lot of teachers in Queensland who were in very disaster-affected areas, either floods or cyclones, and they would have held it together for the whole year because they know that it's important for the children and for the parents, for them to be kind of on top of their game, if you like. Now, they would, if they do have any concerns, if they do have any of their own anxieties, they might have actually forced it out of their mind for the whole year. And I'm sure this is what good parents do and what good teachers do. This will not work during the end-of-year school holidays because there is no thing that will take your mind off things 8 hours a day. You won't be as tired at the end of the day. You'll have plenty of time to actually think about some of these potential anxiety or depressive symptoms that you've kind of been grumbling on for months and months and months. The other thing is actually looking after children in a disaster-affected area is actually incredibly hard work emotionally. You've probably had to put in harder this year than most other years. And again, this has a cost. So I would encourage teachers that if they're feeling anxious or depressed or have some sort of distress feeling in the weeks following this year, they need to be mindful of that. They need to think about the origins of that. They need to think whether this is the usual thing that happens every year, and it might just be therefore their response to the end of the year, or if it's much worse this year. If it's much worse, it might be because of the type of year they've had. What you should then do is actually look for, if you like, some validation of these kind of feelings. You can do that by looking at a website like Beyond Blue, which has excellent information and checklists about anxiety and depression, or you could go and discuss it with a friend and a colleague or a counsellor or a GP. But you probably should do something. And don't forget, this happens in every profession. This happens in the health profession after a hard rotation. It happens in the military all the time. When people come home from deployment, they're often much more anxious than when they were actually on deployment. And it happens in the education field as well. So have a look at your response. If you're feeling much worse at the end of the year, be thoughtful about it, take it seriously, and look into it, either on the web or by seeing someone about it. If you actually do find out there's an issue, then there's a lot of fantastic, fairly easy help you can get, again from your GP or through a psychologist, through the Better Access program, or again from some websites. But really, doing nothing about it is actually not the way to go.
How can teachers prepare for the upcoming dangerous weather season and anniversaries?
In terms of preparation for the season to come and anniversaries, I mean, one of the issues is most of the anniversaries will be outside the school year. So in some respects, you're looking at preparing yourself, not so much having to prepare the whole class, and that's a good thing. Preparing yourself, you need to make this fundamental decision about whether you're going to engage in this whole process or not. Again, some people don't go to anniversaries, and there's two particular reasons for that. One is that they weren't traumatised, they got through it extremely well. It's not an important issue for them. But the other group is that they know it'll be so upsetting that they actually don't want to go. So you need to make a decision about what of those groups that you are in, and be knowledgeable about that. Now, if you do go to an anniversary, you need to also be aware that it might bring up some very traumatic memories that you've had. And it can actually bring up memories not only about the most recent events of 2010, 2011, but for some people actually earlier events. I mean, I know I personally had an experience that the minute I smelt the mud in my front yard from the floods, I remembered 1974 because I'm sure it was the same mud. It was a fascinating phenomena. So if you go to these events, you'll have these kind of feelings, you'll have reminders of past events, and you need to kind of have a little bit of a plan, especially if you're someone who is more emotional than your kind of cohort. You need to have some sort of plan, and you can discuss this with your partner, you can discuss this with people who are close to you. In terms of the coming season, how you dealt with last season is highly predictive of how you will deal with the current season, with the caveat that you're more experienced than you were 12 months ago. Generally speaking, people should be better able to cope this year. And of course, the early predictions are that this year should be a little bit better, hopefully a lot better than last year. So that's kind of a hopeful thing as well. You need to look at your repertoire of coping, things that you did successfully last year. You should prescribe yourself more of those kind of things. Things you didn't do so well, we should learn from those kind of things. For instance, my family will have more candles this year, and we'll evacuate a little bit earlier, and we'll be more mindful, and we'll probably watch the TV less, because we're all a bit traumatised by 3 days of watching Cyclone Yazi. So we've kind of learnt a little bit from last year. You should have an active process of thinking about these things. So anniversaries, decide if you're going or not. Think about if you do go, how you're going to respond. And just generally, just have a little mindful pause about how you went last year and see what you did well, do more of that, what you could do better. Be thoughtful about how you're going to do that.